Hi guys, it is Cara, theBubblelush. So I know it's been a really long time since I've made videos. I'm actually 37 weeks pregnant today. But tonight I'm going to film 3 different vlogs. I'm going to film 35, 36, and 37 weeks because a lot has happened in each of those weeks, but I didn't feel comfortable talking about it, and I'll explain why. I love making videos that are informative and encouraging and empowering and kind of filled with hope. And the last thing I ever want to do is to make a video that scares people or or that kind of begs for feedback that is going to scare me. So I think it'll make more sense when I get into it, but what I'm saying is I was afraid to make the video and talk about what was going on because I knew that the comments that I would get, I knew that while a lot of them would be encouraging and awesome, I also knew that I was kind of opening myself up for horror stories, for people to share like their bad experiences. And I was not in a place where I could handle hearing any bad news at all. So what was going on? This entire pregnancy, I have been telling the midwives, this baby does not feel like it's head down. Like, when are you guys going to get concerned that this baby is not head down? And I think they thought I was just being, I don't know, jumping the gun and being afraid or something, but I just had this feeling like the baby never was head down. And I knew it was still early, but like, when are we concerned? And they said 34 weeks, I think it's kind of, maybe 32, but I think 34 is like when they wanted to see the baby head down. So I knew that the baby was not head down when I went in for my 35-week appointment, 34.5 weeks. I knew it wasn't. I was so uncomfortable. I can't even put it into words. I haven't gained a lot of weight with this pregnancy. In fact, I've lost a lot of weight with this pregnancy. And because of that, I'm kind of more of a waist now than I did back before I got pregnant. But those past, 33 to 35 weeks, I was so wide because of the way that the baby was laying. You could see my stomach from the back. Like, I was bulging out the sides. And that's just weird. I'm 6 feet tall and I'm proportionally big. I'm not skinny at all by any means. So like the baby, say this is baby William. He, instead of being like head down or breech, he was laying like directly across my uterus. Like I could feel his head and I could feel his feet kicking me. And he would stretch out multiple times a day and I felt like I was carrying a watermelon sideways. It hurt. It really was actually quite painful. And my midwives were, when I went in for my 35-week appointment, they were shocked that the baby was in such a weird position. In fact, they checked it like multiple times to make sure that he really wasn't in there differently, but he really was. He was completely transverse. And they were like, this is really rare. Usually the baby would flip by now because he, especially since he is such a big baby, he's setting in such a stupid way. Like, he's not making the most of the uterus shape. So they encouraged me to do spinning babies, and I told them I've been doing the spinning babies techniques for 3 weeks now. And the one you do for transverse babies is you like kneel on the edge of a couch, or I do it on my side chairs. They're a little firmer. And then you lean down until you have your forearms on the ground and your head is like kind of relaxed, your head is touching the ground. And so your butt is like way up in the air, your forearms are on the floor, and you're trying to take advantage of gravity and loosening up some of those muscles to encourage the baby to turn. And you only do it for like 30 to 45 seconds. It's a total head rush. It's really awful to do if you have a head cold, which I did it multiple times with a head cold. And not only does your head fill with blood, but it's full of snot. It's awful. Like your head's gonna explode. But I did it multiple times over multiple days, all the time, and the baby was never turning. It was like he was mocking me. So at this 35-week appointment, the midwife was like, you know what, just don't worry about it anymore. We will we're going to get you in for an ultrasound at like 36.5 weeks, and we'll see what position he's in, and we'll see if we need to do a version. And so we started the topic of external versions, and it's something that I hadn't really considered. I was just hoping that he would turn on his own. And the more we talked about versions, the more scared I got, honestly. So a lot of you that have followed my story know that I do not have normal uterine anatomy. I have an arcuate at the top. It's not a septum, but it is a dent. And because of that, it kind of creates a barrier for the baby. Like he can't move completely freely the way that some other babies can. He'll either get stuck in one lobe or the other, and they think that that's part of the problem, part of the reason why Hannah wasn't able to engage correctly. She was kind of hung up on my pelvis a little bit, and they didn't know that until the C-section. So if you have totally normal anatomy, an external version is said to have a success rate of about 60% in getting the baby to turn and go either head down or breech. Usually, obviously, they want head down. And so of those 60% that are successful, still, it seems about like 30% end up with a C-section just because of laboring issues. That's kind of their, average C-section rate in the US is about 30 to 33%. So, it's not, it's something that is not without risk. It's obviously, it can be a very painful procedure. And what she was telling me was that it is a procedure that is done in the operating room with an OB, team ready to do a C-section because it can, they can mess up the placenta and have to do an emergency C-section right then. There's issues possibly with, cord wrapping around the neck and the baby going into distress and needing a C-section. So there are a lot of concerns and risks going into a version. That said, if your baby is transverse, you can't birth that way. Like, you can birth the baby breech and you can birth the baby head down. You can't do anything about a transverse baby. It's just stuck. It's not going to come out butt first, right? So if you don't have the version done, you have to have a C-section. It's like 100% C-section rate. So my choices were, try a version and maybe get a vaginal birth, or just schedule a C-section, or maybe the baby will turn between now and when I go into labor. But it's something that I needed to consider because they would do the version when I turned 37 weeks. They wanted the baby to be full term so that in case something happened and they had to have a C-section, an emergency C-section, that the baby would be full term. But they don't want him so big that it's hard for him to turn. But they want him big enough that once they get him head down, he's not just going to rotate right back around. Does that make sense? So it's just like perfect time, and they usually do it at 37 weeks. So I had 2 weeks to kind of either get the baby to turn or decide if I wanted to have a version or schedule a C-section. So that's why I didn't make a video, because it's a huge, huge decision. And honestly, because of the arcuate, and so my success rate would probably be even lower, because I'm already a VBAC, so my chance of having a vaginal birth is already kind of diminished, and I might just end up having to have another C-section, if I don't go into labor. I wasn't leaning towards having a version. I was leaning towards, continuing to try to get the baby to turn or having a C-section, but not really interfering that hands-on myself. So it was kind of a stressful appointment because I wasn't expecting to be faced with that decision, kind of sent home with homework of, all right, you need to do a gut check and figure out what you want to do. This early, I was only 35 weeks, but obviously it made sense. So I met with this midwife quite a few times. She is awesome, and I like the fact that she's really blunt. She doesn't really sugarcoat it. She gives me the facts and the statistics, and I appreciate that. I'm type A. I appreciate that. And I told her, I was just like, I was just kind of exasperated. I was like, I don't understand. I was like, why can't I just like go into labor like a normal person? Like, why am I like the problem child, right? Like, you know, last time I just didn't ever go into labor, had this long epic labor and delivery. Like, why isn't it just simple? And these women that do have simple deliveries, man, they are so lucky. Like, your water just breaks and you have a baby, and she stops me and she goes, oh, that's right, I need to tell you one more thing. And I was like, oh. She was like, if your water breaks while your baby is transverse, it is a serious situation. And what you need to do is immediately get on your hands and feet, put your head down as low as you can and your butt up as high as you can. And you're trying to use gravity to get that baby towards the top of your uterus and away from your cervix. Because normally if a baby, let's bring my model out again. Normally if your baby is head down, the head is on the cervix, and so it's blocking, you know, anything from coming out. And the water can go around the baby's head, you know, your amniotic fluid, once your water breaks. But the cord really can't, because its head is blocking the way. But if your baby is transverse and your cord is just like looping down, and your water breaks and your cervix is open, there's a risk of cord prolapse. And so that's like an emergency situation. It would block off oxygen to the baby, and you're looking at like a serious situation. So she said, you know, so if your water breaks while your baby is still transverse, get down on your hands and knees, butt up, head down, call 911. And I was like, are you serious? Like, are you serious? And she was like, yeah, I'm dead serious. And I was like, that's so much more dramatic than I want this to be. I'm looking for like just, I don't want to have like this frantic labor and delivery. I just want to have like a baby, you know, all of a sudden go into labor, go to the hospital, have a nice labor and delivery, cute little newborn. And it just seems to be so, it's like anything that can go wrong at the end of labor or the end of pregnancy is going wrong at this point. So that's kind of where my mind was at. I went and saw my husband after my appointment. He was at work. He was actually on his break, so that was good. And we walked around with Hannah, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. Like, I did not ever expect to be in this position. And yeah, so that was my 35-week pregnancy update in a nutshell. If I had made it at the time, honestly, I would have been really upset. I was really stressed out and disappointed and just ready to throw my hands up and be like, I don't know what to do. This is not a position I ever wanted to be in. This is like my worst case scenario of having to choose between doing a version and scheduling a C-section, because I feel like there's always going to be a what if, and, you know, which one is the greater risk, and I don't know, it feels like it's a lose-lose in a way. So, if your baby is transverse, obviously there's some things I talked about. I hope I'm not scaring you at all. You still have time, especially if you're only 35 weeks pregnant, to get the baby to turn, and I definitely suggest that you check out the Spinning Babies website. I will include a link below. The techniques for transverse and breech baby are very similar, so check those out. And you can also go to your chiropractor, and a chiropractor that is certified in the Webster Technique, which helps loosen up some ligaments and try to get the baby in a better position. And I will include a link to try to find a chiropractor that is licensed in the Webster Technique near you in the thing below. So that is it. I'm going to do the 36-week update so you can see kind of how this has progressed over the past couple of weeks. And I will talk to you guys later.